Good evening. Hello, everyone. On behalf of Team Avatar and myavatar.com, I welcome you to the 21st day of our month long celebrations, the Diversity Mahotsav 2021. I'm Janani Sampath, and I will be your host for today's evening. As we start, here are a few hygiene checks for a seamless virtual experience. Please close all of the applications on your computer and log out from your organization's VPN to conserve internet bandwidth. Once again, extremely thrilled and delighted to welcome you all to the 21st day of Diversity Mahotsav. So, what is Diversity Mahotsav all about? We are celebrating diversity, we are celebrating you. Diversity Mahotsav is presented by myavatar.com, India's only diversity portal with jobs, events, skilling programs, webinars, and more for all the underrepresented groups at the workplace. For those who have joined us today, we are delighted to have you on board. We hope you would join us through this month for some riveting sessions and loads of learning. So they say what you do for close to 21 days actually becomes a habit. We do hope that diversity, equity, and inclusion have become an integral part of your lives in some way or the other. We would like to thank our partners for Diversity Mahotsav 2021. Ideology partners, Cognizant, HCL Technologies Limited, and Strive, supporting partners for Asia India Private Limited, Logitech Engineering and Designs India Private Limited, Saint Gobain India Private Limited, Sodexo, and Zorian Solutions. Our community partner, NASCOM. Our social media hashtags are hashtag Diversity Mahotsav, hashtag Celebrating Diversity. We look forward to you posting your experience at Diversity Mahotsav on your social media handles using these hashtags. Yesterday, in the 20th edition of Sound Bites, we heard from Dr. Soundarya Rajesh, founder president at Avatar Group, clearly differentiating the components of the pack, namely diversity, equity, and inclusion, based on its importance. Let's begin our 21st day with the 21st edition of Sound Bites, a series where our founder president, Dr. Soundarya Rajesh, clarifies some of the pertinent questions that she has been addressing on various aspects of diversity, equity, and inclusion in her 21-year-old career of being the subject matter expert in DEI. Dr. Soundarya is an award-winning pioneer in this field, and she explains the importance of equitable workplaces. Her work in the space of DEI is unparalleled in the country. Dr. Soundarya Rajesh is a social entrepreneur who has won several accolades and awards, such as the 100 Women Achiever from the Government of India, Web Wonder Women by Twitter and Ministry of Women and Child Welfare, Winds of Change 2019 Award by the Forum of Inclusion at Minnesota, Women Transforming India Award, Golden Aviator Award, India's Most Innovative Diversity and Inclusive Leaders Award, and so on. She was once a second career woman who acted against the inequalities posed by the corporate world in recruiting women candidates on a career break. An inexorable advocate of the potential of women's workforce participation, Dr. Soundarya is the advisor of choice for an impressive list of organizations and leaders on the benefits of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. Today, in the 21st edition of Sound Bites, we will have Dr. Soundarya helping us figure out which is the most challenging aspect of DEI for organizations to achieve. Is it diversity? Is it equity? Or is it inclusion? Over to you, Dr. Soundarya.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion are more than policies, programs, or headcounts. They are actually a cultural mooring that kind of influence one another. Diversity, definitely challenging, but with concerted effort, you can get there. Equity, also challenging, but if you have that concentration and that focus on ensuring that everybody gets a level playing field, it can be implemented. But the I, inclusion, that is the most challenging one to implement, because it means that you have to bring together the organizational leaders, managers, and just about everybody, teach them to be open-minded, encourage different perspectives, and make sure that all individuals are included. Inclusion is the most challenging, and that's where organizations have to start.
Thank you so much, Dr. Soundarya, for that definite index, which literally ranks the DEI components on the basis of its challenging nature. Today, in our Pride and Beyond segment, we have Mahua Seth, Senior Director, Global RE Risk and EHS, talk about beyond gender and sexual diversity. With almost 30 years of experience, Mahua has worked across various areas: IT delivery, quality assurance, and process control, process management, product evangelization, knowledge management, risk management, environment, health, and safety. She has a bachelor degree in metallurgical engineering and master's in manufacturing systems engineering from Florida Atlantic University, the US. She is currently implementing EHS processes globally for Cognizant. She loves reading, traveling, cooking, gardening, dancing, and listening to music. She loves to keep learning and is now learning Kalaripayattu and golf. She is also on her way to be a certified coach. Mahua has always had strong views on making the workplace and society a level playing field for all. Building an inclusive culture, she has had a deep conviction and passion, has always been a deep conviction and passion for her. She has advocated women empowerment and mentored many women throughout her career. She has worked in the disability sector through her trust, where she created and distributed literature classics in 7 Indian languages and English in Braille. She has anchored and built the LGBTQ affinity group, Embrace Incognizant, and is part of the Embrace Global Leadership Team. Being a member of Swikar, the Rainbow Parents Group, she is active on driving sensitization programs across Cognizant and college campuses when it comes to LGBTQ. Firm in the belief that awareness and education alone can build the bridge to wholesome acceptance, she loves to drive these tough conversations. Always an optimist, Mahua feels that change will come. We need to keep chipping and chiseling away. Over to you, Mahua.
Hello. It is an honor to be here. I thank Avtar to invite me here. And as rightly said, I love these tough conversations. I had listened to Dr. Soundarya in multiple forums, and she had attended the first diversity forum conference that we had in Cognizant. Since then, I've been in awe of what she's been doing. So Avtar has done a lot in this area of bringing back women into workplace, second time around, as well as other diversity. So thank you so much. And I welcome and I hope everybody listening in will find this useful. Please do keep posting your questions and I'll be happy to answer them. It is going to be more of my experience sharing as we move forward. Let me start with my story. I grew up in a small town, in a girls' school, convent school. Free, fun-loving friends, nurturing parents, in fact, liberal parents. Very close community. And I grew up doing a lot of things, cycling, biking, dancing, and having fun. Throughout my school, in our times, in those days when we didn't have internet, I had no idea about the term LGBTQ. I did not ever know of these words. Just like many of us as growing up. I'm no different. There was a time when I was small and I did hear about hijras. Eventually, I did see hijras. And we heard all this myth. And we were told by our community, our uncles and aunts and neighbors, about how they steal children and babies. And when we used to be out playing, and if we saw a hijra coming in, we would run for our dear lives. It never occurred to us that how will they steal us? But that is the kind of myths and perceptions that I grew up with, just like everybody else. I happily graduated out of school, went into college. First time I heard of the word gay was in college. And I had heard it in terms of strange myths. We didn't know what it is. I heard jokes about it, certain perceptions. I remember giggling with my girlfriends and my other friends about who a gay is. How would you identify a gay of the boys that you see? You know, when you're young and you're looking at guys, attractive guys. And we heard all these weird perceptions. Dandy boys, boys who likes to dress up, boys who put a lot of perfume, boys who are effeminate or men who are effeminate. It was very strange. And we would giggle and we had no clue. We never knew that there was something called lesbians at that point. You know, how shocking with all the education and a liberal upbringing. This is where I was. In fact, there was one corner where, you know, in our university, we used to have a lot of foreign students. And there were men who had come in as students from Iran, very good looking men. And of course, we would eye them. And we found most of them fitted into this dandy perfume, very conscious about themselves, some of them effeminate. And we said, oh, he must be gay. He must be gay. And then we suddenly wondered, are all the Iranian men in our college gay? Because we kind of singled them all out. You know, so it's not right. It was wrong. And that's when we realized something is wrong here. But we had very little. I graduated out of college completely unaware. I went off to US to study. It is in US, and then I eventually found myself in California. California, in among all of US, I think is one of the most interesting and happening place with a lot of new ideas. I saw movies and I read books. I still remember weeping when I saw Brokeback Mountain. That is when my first understanding of LGBTQ came in. When I started understanding what an LGBTQ is, I read about them. I read books, just as we read books of women writers and understand the pains and the ethos of women. Similarly, the more I read, the more I could understand where they came from. My perceptions went away. My jokes, I felt ashamed of them. I feel ashamed that there was a time when I did that. I started becoming more sensitive towards it. I started developing an awareness. But did I know any gay and lesbians in my life? No. I still didn't know anybody around me. So it was like, it's another world. But more and more that I started reading about it and understanding the pain that they went through, I think I started building some amount of acceptance in me. Something must have changed in me, in my language, in the way I voiced my opinion about what they're going through, about the fights for their rights. The Philadelphia movie that came out with Tom Hanks doing a fantastic role. When I started talking about LGBTQ issues, I started noticing more and more LGBTQ people around me. It was interesting. I started to read more. I started to listen more. I met LGBTQ people. I listened to them. The more I heard them, the more pain I felt, the pain that the community went through, the sense of rejection that they felt. That is when I feel I first shifted in my thought process, my evolution towards understanding LGBTQ. I went about my life and I worked for 30 years now. And I was part of the DNI Council in Kolkata in Cognizant. And of course, we drove a lot of programs about women and women empowerment, building women leadership, leadership pipeline, and all that. And then I asked, shouldn't we be working to take up LGBTQ issues? When I did ask and I proposed that, what question I faced? Everybody looked at me and said, do you think we have them in our workplace? Do you think we have them in our workplace? That rattled me. I realized then that I needed to speak up. And I needed to stand tall for the LGBTQ in the workplace. For if I can't, then how can they? That is the time that I decided that I will no longer stay quiet. That's my journey towards being an ally. So what is an allyship? Allyship is a marathon. I started here where I actively participated in the hate conundrum. I cracked jokes, I had fun, I laughed. That is where it all starts. But more and more of educating oneself, you move. I am more in this place now, is how I see it, where I'm trying to educate others, where I want to support the community. That is what allyship is. And why is allyship? It is the ally's responsibility. It's always the majoritarian's responsibility to make sure the inclusion is there. It is not the responsibility of the minority or the marginalized. They are anyway marginalized. They have no voice. It is us who have to bring up this conversation. It is us who have to recognize our ignorance. I'm not saying ignorance in terms of IQ, but ignorance in terms of not being aware. Ignorance is the parent of fear, and fear is the parent of hatred. Right? And so, like how women, when the women movement started, it is the men who were our allies. It is the men who got us the seat at the table. I remember when I was doing my engineering, and in my fourth year, my final year, I had to do an internship in a factory. And I was metallurgical engineering. I wanted to do hardcore shop floor work. And I did apply to one of the automobile industry for a shop floor internship. The person who was in charge, the works manager, also happened to be an uncle of my, a friend of my uncle. And so when he saw my application, he was shocked. And you know what he told me? This is in my lifetime. He said, we do not allow women on the shop floor. So I protested. I said, if we are going into engineering colleges, he said, why don't you go into our design centers and be in a design and research? I said, I want to see the shop floor. He called me back the next day and said, one day we will have to. So why not start with you? So he was already a lie. He got me that seat on the table that day. And when I actually reported to the shop floor, everybody on the shop floor was shocked. They had never seen a woman on the shop floor. And believe me, I was escorted every place except the restroom. Fine. Somebody wants to accompany me, I don't have an issue. But that is what allyship is. We have to stand up for them. And that is what this community needs. Allies. Allies from our. We have to stop this whole homophobic, transphobic beliefs and myths. No child is born a racist, a casteist, a sexist, or a homophobic. It is what we make of them. It's what the society makes of them. So therefore, it is up to us to change that. It is up to us to change that narrative and explain why this is ridiculous. That is where we need to start. And why do we need to start this? Because who is a homosexual? Who is a transgender? A lot of people told me, oh, I don't like their lifestyle. What do you mean by lifestyle? What is a lifestyle? Jogging, going for exercise is a lifestyle. Eating healthy and organic is a lifestyle. What do you mean by a lifestyle when you say you don't like it? Oh, what they do. What they do? How does it matter to you? As a heteronormative person, what you do, does it matter to anyone else? This is where we need to question. I have on the slides up there where you can see the different terminologies. And we need to understand that this is a natural phenomenon. Nature builds as a spectrum in life. Nature never gives a definitive thing. When we are born, we are born with different capabilities. If you can recollect people in your class in school where somebody was brilliant in mathematics, somebody was brilliant in language or an essay, somebody was fantastic as a leader, somebody was a born naughty fellow constantly working up very creative ways to pull pranks. Not everybody in that school had the same mathematical ability or the creative ability, right? It is all a spectrum. In our minds, a spectrum. Our brains are a spectrum. It is a range, and we are born with a certain range. Life is everything within our body is a spectrum. When you go ahead and take a blood test, it gives you a range. You do not get an absolute number for everybody. It's a range. Because that is how nature produces. Similarly, understanding gender and sex is also a spectrum. Please understand there's a male, there's a female, there's intermediate spectrum. And please understand each of these are independent of each other. What is a gender and what is a sexual orientation? They are two different aspects. How I see myself as my gender depends on my biological constitutions, my hormones, my organs. And I'm assigned a biological sex at birth. If my gender identity aligns, then it's no conflict. But if it doesn't align, then I have a conflict. Now, each of these are different expressions. They are all discrete and they are all a spectrum. This is something that comes natural. There is no choice. We hear this often. It is a choice. It is never a choice. It's who they are. It is we as society who make them, force them into a choice. For years and centuries, we've had homosexuals. But for years in our Indian society and many places, our usual thing is get them married, they'll be fine. They've been marrying and living a lie and removing and damaging more people in their lives and themselves. We force them, but it's who they are. And that is the understanding that we have to have. I know in my childhood, and I'm sure many of you who are listening in will know, there was a time when left-handed kids were beaten on their hands with the ruler and forced to write on the right hand. You remember? There was a time when left-handed people in medieval age was considered as Satans. They were considered as the children of Satan. Today we understand that's not true. They are left-handed. They are no different from any one of us. But I know friends who write with the right, but who play cricket with the left because they're inherently left-handed. I know a person who had a disabled right hand, but who was still forced to write by his right, and he can write both. And so in an exam, when there was pressure, he would take to writing in left because that's his strong arm. So that is where myths and perceptions perceive. There is something which is natural. Not everybody has to be right-handed. Similarly, not everybody have to be either or only one. This is the kind of spectrum that they live with. And remember, when a child is born and lives with this, and when he realizes that he is different and the society will not accept him, the consequences the children face is enormous. Most of these children, they face the rejection from the family first, which is the worst, the rejection from the parents, the fear of rejections if they cannot come out to their parents. Then it moves into self-loathing. They hate themselves because they feel they can't do anything about themselves. They don't want themselves. They hate everything about themselves then. And that is unfortunate. They lose their esteem. They start hating themselves. They start isolating. They feel ashamed of themselves. They're depressed. 80% of the children, by the time they're adults, has either attempted self-harm, thought of self-harm, or has committed suicide. And this is a statement from one school child. I felt like whatever I was doing was worthless. Even if I did well in school, it wouldn't matter to people because all they would care about me is me being gay. And this is what happens. We reject them for one part. We say he's gay. Don't go near him. Don't send your children near them. Why? They're just like us. They are human beings with the same emotion, the same intelligence, the same talent, the same capability. How are they hurting you for you to treat them like that? And that is where we need to do. It's not fair. We need to think about it. We need to know what it means. Put yourself in their shoes. See how it feels. All it needs is understanding and empathy. Just understanding that there are different people in the world And that's all that matters. Alan Turing, whom we hail as one of the greatest minds, was gay. And he hid it. World War II, for those who would have seen the movie, World War II, one of the important codes were broken by Alan Turing. But when he was found out, what horror he went through. He was chemically castrated because it was unacceptable. It's only in 2 years' time that finally he has been recognized and given and knighted. That's unfortunate. And the worst that all LGBTQ people have is 80%, 75% of them has faced some kind of violence, either emotional, verbal, physical, some horrible violence. Children are very mean. Anybody who's slightly different, they will be cruel to them. And they've grown up with that. And they are fearful. They are fearful. They live in that fear of being discovered. Gay men and women and transgenders, they live in that fear of being discovered and doing. Transgenders from good houses, educated houses, end up homeless because their families can't accept. Why can't the families accept? Because it's a social thing that the families fear. They would rather abandon their child than stand up to society. So who needs to be an ally? The society, us, to save these kids, to save these people in the world. I am a part of a beautiful organization called Swikar, the Rainbow Parents. And that is a group that has come together, which is the parents of LGBTQ children. And it is to give moral support to each other, to help each other accept and go into this journey of acceptance. And it's beautiful. The more it grows, the more we speak about. That's why we all speak and we come here. The best case of allyship, and it really made my day, was in this May. I don't know if you've seen, in this June actually, there was this case in the Madras High Court about this lesbian couple who was being harassed by the police. And the Justice Anand Venkatesh, took time, a month, to go and study LGBTQ issues. And he came back and said, and gave his verdict after that. And he also said, observing that his own upbringing had always treated the terms homosexual, gay, and lesbians as an anathema, and that a majority of the society stands in the same position of ignorance and preconceived notions. This was a true allyship. He took time and he went and spoke to various psychologists, doctors, NGOs that work with transgenders, NGOs that work with LGBTQ, understood before he came and did. And he to recognize that in his upbringing, just like in my upbringing, just like in all our upbringings, okay, we all went through this. We grew up knowing that these are, as he said, an anathema. So it's ignorance and these preconceived notions that we need to throw out. And that is why this was important. A lot of people, when I talk, they come back and say, hey, the Section 377 has got knocked out. Yes, it was needed long time ago. But all it meant was decriminalization. It did not give any other rights. If anybody of you have seen that web series Made in Heaven, you will have seen that they showed this part of how a gay person is harassed under Section 377. And it's unfortunate. right? It is only the decriminalization that has happened. No other rights have happened. So we still have a long way to go. And why do we have a long way to go? We have 10%, estimated 10% of our population who are likely to be gay or lesbian. Bisexuals are likely to be even more. So can you imagine 10%? Can you imagine the number of LGBTQ people we have in our society? In my organization itself, there's 30,000, 40,000 LGBTQ associates. Do we know them? No, because they are not out. Like anywhere else in the world, people are scared of being found out because they are scared that they'll be discriminated. They are scared that they will be name called. They are scared that they may have to leave that job and go somewhere else. The fear of being found out is deep within them. That fear can only be removed with our acceptance. And our acceptance of them can only come with our ability to understand, with our ability to find out and know more. That is what we need to do. And it is very important. We are not doing anybody a favor here. It is a business imperative that we work towards inclusion. It's 10% of the population, 10% of our talent force that we want to retain. And yes, because of internet, because of a lot of great work done by a lot of good LGBTQ icons, there is a lot more awareness among the youngest. I do speak to a lot of people, young kids who are in class 9, 10, and it's amazing how strongly they feel about LGBTQ. It doesn't mean that they are LGBTQ. Even the straight or the cisgender folks are also now, young kids are becoming conscious. They want to work in organizations which have an inclusive work environment. They are going to stand up and they are going to be allies. So we as an organization, we need to change fast, and change we must. We have to bring different ways of bringing in. What Saundarya said is right. We can have policies as much as we want. In fact, we had policies for 3 years in Cognizant. But this whole sensitization programs that we drove in Cognizant threw up a lot of things, a lot of views which I did not think. Just as we speak about male privilege or a white male privilege, right? Or a Brahmin privilege, the same thing is about a heterosexual privilege. A lot of people came back and said, why do you have to talk about homosexuality? Why do you have to worry about it? I don't. This is the heterosexual privilege that speaks. In our organization, in our society, when our children get married, we celebrate in huge, big, fat Indian weddings. We go and invite 1,000 people and we have sangeets and mehndis and we follow all these weddings of the celebrities. Isn't that celebrating heterosexuality? When you are at your work and you put a picture of your wife and a kid, isn't that your heterosexual privilege? When you call home, if you're late and you call and tell your wife, honey, I'm going to be late because I have an office, and in front of all your colleagues, isn't that a heterosexual privilege? Can you imagine a gay man calling his partner and telling this in front of everyone? No. Recently, there was, 2 days ago, there was this huge thing about this gay wedding in Hyderabad, and there were all these pictures and doing it. And why not? Today, I have met enough gay men enough lesbians, enough transgenders, and have seen them wonderfully committed for life, raising children and bringing them up beautifully. Who says it is for women to raise children alone? Who says a man cannot be a good parent? Motherhood is anyway overrated, and it is also imposed by the heteronormative patriarchal society to keep us bound to our motherhoods, to keep us bound to our things. All right. I was rejected because of me being a woman, and that's the societal norm. So yes, you start. If you are listening to me here, please start understanding, reading, seeing, read more. That is the reason, like, I love sharing different books that bring out about LGBTQ, different movies that bring out positively, so that you understand them, not where they are made mockeries of, but where it is understood. A lot of people are unsure, and they come back and say, if someone comes out to me, what do I do? What do you do? Just hug that person. Remember, if somebody came out to you, then you have done something right, because they have enormous trust in you. That's a sign that you are on the right path. The most powerful thing we can do is to listen. And the most powerful thing to do is to create an environment of openness. So when we started, most of the organizations now have employee resource group. We created Embrace. We have Embrace in Cognizant. We call it Embrace. We run sensitization programs for the management, for mid-management, also for inductees. We have had, in this COVID pandemic times, a lot of people who have transitioned. So we've had sensitization programs for those accounts so that they are ready to accept them in a right way. Very interesting. When I and some of my colleagues started working on this, my job at that time took me to different buildings in Kolkata. I'm based out of Kolkata. And when I would visit different buildings, I will have some people who have attended these or knows about it, who would ping me and say, I would like to come and meet you, right? And I'll say, yeah, sure. People will come, young people in groups, men, women, 2, 3. First, one person would come. Next week, 2 people will come. And they'll just have coffee with me, and they'll sit in my room, and we'll chat about Cognizant, about careers, about life. I don't know why they came to meet me, but I know deep down why they came. They felt that I was a safe zone. And that is what you can give. The safe zone. When you speak up and you stand up for the LGBTQ, you are providing them a safe space. They know here is where there is acceptance, and they will do that. And any employer or corporations needs to value their employees the best. All employees. The more you do it, if you don't, they're just getting angry about why they are, about the policies and about how it is. You have to stop the homophobic jokes, like how I start. You have to stop those language which is inappropriate. Today, any language inappropriate to a woman is a no-no. Same thing for any marginalized group. These jokes are inappropriate. The toll of these comments on this community is enormous. And that is what we need to do. To all the LGBTQ people out there, love yourself, accept yourself, you are what you are. And I understand that over and over again, your identity is invalidated, and I'm very sorry about it, but I'm sure that we will change. Give time and patience. To your parents, especially, get them help, right? You have a lot to give. All the talent and knowledge that you bring, please bring them. In my lifetime, from the time when I actually got a job letter which said, that they were sorry they could not appoint me in spite of my qualifications because they do not take women in their factories. Today, in my lifetime, we have women enrolling into minings and going down. So change has come. Left-handed people are today not a problem. Learning disabilities are something which is understood, and we accept them and we move forward with them from schools. So why not this? I am confident that one day such conversations will no longer be needed. And possibly before I die, till then, I will keep on having these conversations. Pride marches are a march of rebellion to show that they're proud of what they are. When we accept them with loving arms as human beings, all they want is to be loved and respected. When we accept them for that, it will no longer be necessary. And that is when a true inclusion will come in. So till then, I will continue to keep talking. Part of what Cognizant offers, my favorite. We can pass as many laws and policies, but acceptance comes in the hearts and minds. And we as a community, we need to learn. We need to understand. Sit and speak to them, talk to them. It rings in my mind of this young girl who was transitioning, who reached out to me after she befriended me. And one day she said, why do people think I'm dangerous? I am a bright person. I do my work well. I pay my taxes. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I don't want to harm anyone. Why am I considered dangerous? It was like a stab in me, in my heart. That is not how we should make any human being in the world feel. Any religion does not ask for that. All human beings need to be loved, accepted, and respected. And that's what is true inclusion. With that, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mahua, for that. It's a very, very a session that was very straight from your heart, if I have to summarize it. And thank you for beautifully taking us through your own journey of, of ignorance, awareness, and now being a very, very effective change maker in your own way. So, allyship, empathy, I'm sure these are words that would have struck a chord with all the categories of our audiences today, be it a parent, be it a youngster, be it anybody working. And I'm sure you have given them the insight and the guidance as to how each of them has the potential to be a change maker, of being that safe zone that you actually sought all of them to be. With that, we actually have a few questions. So you were talking about the Rainbow Parents group, right? So if you can tell us a little bit about the kind of challenges parents who are supportive of their children face when it comes to dealing with society, the ones that have been presented to you through this group that you work very closely with.
Absolutely. First of all, Rainbow Parents Group is a small group still, but we are growing. Largely women, mostly mothers. Okay. So I think it's the mothers who are tormented about giving up their child. All right. I have known parents there who had to walk out of their marriage to stand by their child. Right. There was one parent, and I can quote her name, and she's all over. Amazing story. When she told me, I cried. She had a son who was in the medical school, bright young boy, who came out to her as gay, and she was as like me. She said, I'd never heard of the word. Conservative South Indian family, head of the big, large joint family, and he was gay. And of course, like every other parent said, okay, you keep quiet, stay quiet, we'll deal with it later. You just study. He went off to US, he did brilliantly, but he came back and he felt that, he needs, that his gender identity doesn't sit and he needs to transition. And he is now a trans woman, a beautiful woman. Okay, very bright. And she told me that when she told her large family, she was said, oh, he will bring disrepute to our family. She said, okay, then I dropped my family name. She was said, you are welcome, but your son is not welcome into our family home. She said, then I shall also not come into this family. All right. And it is hard. It is not easy. All right. And I tell you, it is once the parent stands by the child, everything starts turning around. One, the child gains confidence. The biggest thing for the child is a rejection of a parent, because that is what it is. Secondly, once a parent stands by the child, the society can't hurt anymore. As long as you give in to this fear, society will keep coming and biting you. And we need to stand up and say and live our true lives, not a life of lie. And then that influences the society, right? In that.
That's lovely. That was a great anecdote, actually, and gives a lot of guidance to, I'm sure, parents also who are listening in here. So this another question comes from Veena. She says, Mahua, a great session, wonderful anecdotes. Would like to listen and know from you more. Maybe the next time I have a question, but I have a question around the trust aspect, which you beautifully articulated. Mahua, at an organizational level, it is only to a level we can sensitize and create awareness. Isn't that the responsibility of each one of us to exhibit the trust factor? Your thoughts, please.
Yes, yes. Each person needs to walk. Each person needs to make that effort. That is why we need to have these conversations. That is why, you hear, because like how I grew up, I never heard. I grew up in a liberal family, but I still never heard. But if I have conversations today, and I'm willing to have open conversations, I start influencing my family, my team, my teams. The team member goes and speaks to their family. There's a ripple effect. The more you have the ripple effect, the better the understanding happens. We do speak about today about our children being autistic, don't we? Don't we support our parents, our fellow colleagues with them? Why not? It's the same. We should just accept all the creativity, all the differences with pleasure, because it just makes the world beautiful. I believe only with tough conversations we can do it. One request that I will ask everybody who's listening to this talk today onwards, stop saying LGBTQ. Go and say lesbian, bisexual, gay, transgender, queer. Use those words. We even hesitate to use those words. That's the first break. Use them. Talk about them. It just spreads. Your trust, your acceptance spreads that beautiful aura.
How true that is, because my next question is also linked to this. So organizations are are societies on their own, in their own right? And they also have the role of being a change maker. So do you think at an organizational level, this role of being the change maker can be extended to the society at large? We know the society influences organizations, but how can organizations influence societies largely?
Particularly in this group, very much so. Because for the LGBTQ community, for a lot of people who are like physically disabled, who have mental disability, access to organization and to organizational roles is a problem. For LGBTQ community, workplace is the only place where they are true to themselves, because they come there, they bring their talent, they bring all they have with them, and they give it. because most of the LGBTQ community, especially in India, their home place is a terrible place. Because one, either they are hiding it, they are completely closeted, so they are completely fearful of what they find, or their families are completely against it. So they are being tortured, horrible torture goes through it. Let me even say it. Lesbian girls are raped by the men in the family to convert them. Let's spell it out. This is what happens in the names of conversion therapy, right? And they go through horrible phase where they are married off, they are forced, they are beaten, they are taken to conversion therapy. In fact, Kerala High Court just 2 days ago gave a thing saying that conversion therapy should be banned. So the home place is the worst place. They just love being at work because that's where they can be themselves for as long as they are. So that's a place where if we give them that space of acceptance, they just bloom. So in this particular thing, I think the workplace can make the most difference and we can really change. Once they bloom and they are confident, just as I've had horror stories through pandemic while the LGBTQ were closeted at home, I've also heard beautiful stories. I know of a gay person whose parents were completely devastated. But when they had COVID, his partner also took care of them. And through COVID, they learned and they saw the caring partnership that they had built, and they have grown to accept the partner. So that will come when they have the confidence and to move forward in life. So workplace, I think, for this community is the core of giving them that space.
That's very heartwarming, a lovely anecdote that to hear, because that's a silver lining of the pandemic, if I may say so, for one family.
Yes.
And that brings us to the last question to you. So Indian MNCs are openly allying with lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer cause, right? So what are the changes you want to see in this landscape in the days ahead from the corporate front?
I like how Parmesh loves saying, and he cites in his books as well, that you make the change in the design. We don't want bandages, right?
Absolutely.
Anything you do, any policy you generate, it has to be under the lens of all discrimination, not just LGBTQ. And that is where I think the organization needs to do, so that one day it's just given. You don't have to put a bandage. Right now, it's like, okay, what do we need to do to fit this in? No. Right? It's something that we accept and we move on.
Lovely. So, and thank you so much, Mahua, for this wonderful session. It was a lot of food for thought and action, more importantly, not just for thoughts again. Thank you so much for joining us and having this heart-to-heart talk with us for us to benefit and to implement. Thank you so much.
Most welcome. I just loved it. I always like to have these conversations.
Thank you. So tomorrow we have in our lightning talk segment, Kajal Srinivasan, stand-up comic, and Shweta Mantri, MBA professional turned stand-up comic. A little about the session tomorrow. Kajal Srinivasan, or how she's known as Lol Rakshak on Twitter, has been doing comedy for 5 years now. She's an alumna of the first ever artist residency organized by Akshara and the US Consulate on Women's Empowerment. She has performed widely at venues like the IIT Bombay, the Kala Ghoda Arts Festival, Bits Pilani, Canvas Laugh Club, and others. She does curated and corporate shows along with running her one-person company providing graphic design. Shweta is an MBA turned writer and disability inclusion enabler who stumbled upon comedy quite accidentally. Presently, she is having a gala time as she stands up to address the disability of understanding and the understanding of disability, one joke at a time. Through her endeavors, Shweta aims to create accessibility and initiate inclusion in people's buildings, minds, and lives. So we look forward to having you all join us tomorrow at 4 p.m. for this session. Also, catch the agenda for the rest of the week at our portal, myavatar.com. Once again, on behalf of Team Avatar and myavatar.com, I thank each one of you and welcome you to the rest of Diversity Mahotsav through December. Once again, we would like to thank our partners, Ideology Partners, Cognizant, HCL Technologies Limited, and Strive. Supporting partners, Forasia India Private Limited, Logitech Engineering and Designs India Private Limited, Saint Gobain India Private Limited, Sodexo, and Zorian Solutions. Our community partner, NASCOM. Our social media hashtags are hashtags Diversity Mahotsav, hashtag celebrating diversity. So please do post your experience at Diversity Mahotsav on your social media handles using these hashtags. If you haven't registered yourself at myavatar.com, please log on today at myavatar.com and register yourself. You can explore various opportunities and activities at our portal that celebrates diversity. Browse through to find jobs that might suit your skill sets, read articles of interest, and upskill yourself through various webinars conducted exclusively for you. Do join us tomorrow sharp at 4 p.m. for yet another insightful session. You can also view the Diversity Mahotsav series on our YouTube channel, Avatar, the Power of Diversity. The link is posted in the chat box. In case you missed our previous day's episodes, please do click on the YouTube link to watch them. So this is Janani signing off till then. Have a great evening, mask up and stay safe.